But I wanted to thank everybody for spending time and joining me here for the Dynamo VoxNest webinar here, talking about how to make money with your podcast using the Dynamo product. I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with Dynamo, else you would not have joined the call, but this is really going to be a webinar that will share a lot of details about the product and the service and how to get signed up with it, how to use it, to really clarify that process that can be simple yet a little complex. So we want to kind of make things a little easier to fully understand what that process is. So I should probably say who I am. My name is Rob Greenlee, and I'm the Vice President of Podcaster Relations at VoxNest. And I'm also joined by Amy Domestico, who is our Customer Success Manager at VoxNest also. And we're both here to be a resource to you, to help you through the process of working with Dynamo, and you're certainly welcome to send us emails. On the screen there, you can see my email address is rob@voxnest.com and amy@voxnest.com too. And we're here for you to help you through the process of getting signed up for Dynamo and really maximizing the revenue opportunity that you have with this product, using your podcast as the vehicle for driving some cash, frankly, into your pockets. So let's go ahead and proceed. Also at the bottom of this screen that you're seeing here too is a URL to the location of the Dynamo product on the VoxNest platform, and that would be the URL that you would go to sign up, join us on this podcast monetization journey. So let's go ahead and step ahead, and this is the agenda, and this is what we're going to cover in the webinar today. And it's just basic concepts. What is dynamic ad insertion? What is Dynamo? And who are the advertisers? And how does Dynamo work? How to get started. Screenshots of a demo account. So I'm not going to be using any live websites or anything like that in the webinar for time reasons. And then I'm also going to share some examples and some other screenshots of how to set this up, and some recommendations around how to place mid-roll placements as well. Tax info, getting set up with your payment account, and we'll take your audience questions. And if you have any questions for us, I'll turn on all the microphones, and you guys can jump in and ask a question if you want to towards the end of the webinar. So let's go ahead and kind of skip to the next one. Well, what is dynamic ad insertion? If you don't really know, I'm going to make this really simple and clear. I mean, it's a very complex kind of technical process, but I don't believe most podcasters need to know all of the technical aspects of how dynamic ad insertion works. But I think the concept of what it is needs to be clear in your mind so you understand the context of how to actually use this technology, that I believe over the next few years is going to become the dominant way that people run advertising and podcasting. So this is kind of a leading edge thing. I've been working in products that use dynamic ad insertion in the podcasting world since about 2014. So I've been involved in it for a pretty long time, at various levels of deployment. And but at its core, what dynamic ad insertion is audio ads that are like a stack of books. So, I mean, all of your shows are basically have segments, right? And you could draw this correlation between a stack of books and a segment of audio. All dynamic ad insertion does is slide like an audio book in and out of a bookshelf. So if you have a row of books, which is basically your episode, what the dynamic ad insertion does is it basically it can slide in the audio spot, or it can remove the audio spot and slide in a new audio spot. And what we provide is a tool that basically can do that along your timeline, whether it's a pre-roll, mid-roll, or post-roll insertion point. And this happens automatically, and it's based on the ad targeting and what the campaign is. It can be any length of spot can be inserted into your audio show and then also removed. So that is the flexibility of the platform, but it also creates kind of different dynamics around how you create your content and how regular those dynamic ad spots are actually included in your particular episode. And those ad insertions happen on the fly. They're based on a per user request. Now, not all dynamic ad insertion platforms operate on a per file request. So when you have a listener that clicks the play button in a player, that makes a request to the server. Our platform will insert those ad spots dynamically based on that request. And then other platforms will pre-generate all those files and serve them out. It basically accomplishes the same thing. There's just two different ways of doing that. And they can be delivered to different geolocations as well. So, and many other podcasting platforms are also using dynamic ad insertion to insert like promos in your episode, or other types of content. It can be cross promotions, and kind of network jingles, things like that can be dynamically inserted into shows too. And that's a little bit more of an advanced use of the dynamic ad insertion technology, which we are not going to be covering or utilizing via the DYNAMO product today. That may be something that's coming in the future, but currently we're just focused on driving the revenue generating ad spots into your program. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide, and hopefully everybody understood that. Well, what is DYNAMO? What the product is a free way, really at the core. I mean, a lot of these platforms like DYNAMO actually charge for this service, and there's an extra fee. But DYNAMO is a free product for all levels of podcasters, and that's what's really unique about the DYNAMO product is that it is for all levels of podcasters. It's not just for the big shows, which typically dynamic ad insertion has been reserved for, is the really big shows that have really big audiences. What we're trying to do at VoxNest with the DYNAMO product is drive this technology down to everyday level podcasts and try and tap into the largest pool of podcasters to drive revenue to podcasters and also revenue to our platform as well, quite frankly. So it's a shared relationship. It's a win-win relationship between us as the podcast hosting platform and technology provider, and you, the content provider, is to provide a service that is more automated and can help you make money from your program without having to do any additional work other than just the setup. And we kind of take care of all of the back end stuff. So this also applies to all your archives. So that's the best way to gather the most revenue from this service too, is to apply it across to all your archives of your episodes, not just your newest episodes, because there are many shows out there that are that build audience based on, let's say, their 2 years of doing shows. People are still listening to the older shows. So those can be monetized as well, as those ads can be kept up to date. They can be more current across all your archives as well. And you might ask, well, what are the ads that are being placed in the DYNAMO product? And I'm going to run through a list a little bit later in the presentation here of all the different types of ads that you will see in the DYNAMO product. I mean, it's just a list of brands is essentially what it is, but all sorts of media buying, from brands to the ad agencies are coming in and buying what's called programmatic ad buying that's being done at a couple of different ad selling platforms. And they're basically like auction-based networks from brands like Home Depot and Citibank and Staples. So these are brand advertisers are typically the people that are coming into this medium. And they're still kind of testing the waters. So we're still in the early stages of these big brand advertisers shifting their budgets from radio to podcasting. The inserted ads are removed and replaced with new ads that run only for certain kind of campaign windows. So when an advertiser or a buying group comes in and buys advertising on this platform, they're buying a certain amount of ad impressions out there. So they're not necessarily buying downloads, or they're not necessarily buying a certain amount of downloads that you have. They're buying because there can be multiple placements of spots in a particular show. Now, granted, any given advertiser may only buy one spot location in your show. But as you think about your show as being a participant in the Dynamo platform, you can have anywhere from just one ad, like a pre-roll, mid-roll, and a post-roll. So that would actually be 3 ads. So you had basically going to run 3 spots in each of your episodes. And that all totals up, right? It's not just, just one download is what you get credit for. If you have 3 spots in there, you're going to get credit for 3 spots. And some shows will have up to 6 or 7 different spots. Now, granted, we kind of caution people about getting too heavy on the ads, because then it can have a negative impact potentially on your audience. So, and what Dynamo also enables you to do, which is really powerful and really rather unique in the market, is it enables you to keep your current hosting. So if you're working with another hosting platform and that hosting platform supports Dynamo and the prefix that you have to do to enable that, and I will explain that a little bit later then you can take advantage of this with any web host out there that maybe doesn't support dynamic ad insertion. So, and there's no additional cost for that. It's just the flexibility of the platform based on how we've architected it to be able to work with as many podcasters as we can. You can start earning revenue from your podcast today. You can get signed up, get your pre-roll, post-roll, and mid-roll insertion points kind of established. You may need to think about your content creation process to establish areas in your program that would be suitable for a mid-roll insertion point, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the webinar as well. And there's no minimum audience size for this product as well. Ad sales, and you don't have to do any ad sales. There's no recording of voice live reads or anything like that. Now, a lot of podcasters are doing that these days, but this particular product doesn't require that, because that's all taken care of for you. And that's where the relaxation part came from. The launch slide of this webinar was you get it set up and relax, do your show, you focus on what you do best, and that's creating your podcast. You're not out there having to do ad sales. You're not trafficking any ads. You don't have to worry about any of that. The payouts for Dynamo, just at a base level here, is 60% goes to the podcaster at a CPM. Typically, and the CPM is basically a cost per million. It's a cost per 1,000 of your audience, right? So, and it's usually between $2 and $5 is kind of what the range is on the payouts per 1,000 basic listeners. I mean, essentially is what it works out to. But let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. Here are a list of advertisers that have been buying into the Dynamo product here over the last 6 months or so. So you can kind of see that there's some big brands in here. There's the ADT Security Systems, AT&T, AutoZone, Capital One, Chevron, CVS, Google, Grocery Outlet. I mean, some really big brand names that are out there. Lowe's, Lexus, Honda. They're oftentimes very safe brands for your show, and I know a lot of podcasters are concerned about that. And I will go into ways that you can kind of filter down and control what the type of advertisers that you are running in your show. We don't currently today have the ability to limit the advertisers based on like the brand or the company, because there's just so many, as you can see here in the list, there's just so many companies coming in and buying targeted audio ad campaigns on the platform that it would be difficult, because it's kind of like an auction environment that people are buying audiences, essentially is what they're doing when they come in and buy these campaigns. How does Dynamo work? I mean, I think that's really at the core here. And I'm going to show you some screenshots of the Dynamo product later on in the presentation. And then I'm also going to share a list of the external podcast hosting platforms that support Dynamo. And if you are not hosting with one of those platforms, then it's going to be difficult for us to get you set up with Dynamo. We are actively working with all of the podcast hosting platforms to get them compatible with the Dynamo product. Some are more cooperative than others, so we're doing our best to try and make that happen. But I will share with you the ones that are currently supporting it, and we do have a help area that will help you through working with those host platforms to get your show all enabled and active with the Dynamo product on those platforms. So, and then also the stats that are generated through the Dynamo dashboard are IAB v2 based stats. And if you're not familiar with the IAB v2, it's the current developing standard around how to count audiences in podcasting. It's an agreed to across the industry. Most of the major hosting platforms are getting on board with the IAB v2 and getting certified for that right now. So it's a wave that's sweeping across the industry to get all of our stats in order, so everybody's on the same page. So when people change host, they're not getting different numbers is the bigger goal. I believe that that's still going to be a little bit of an issue even after certification, but it's going to be less of an issue than it has been. And so as you can see there, we're going to track ad impressions delivered, earned revenue, CPM earnings, total listens, and ad impressions as well. And then the next one here is during active ad campaigns, Dynamo hosts the MP3 files. So I wanted to make sure everybody kind of understands a little bit of the logistics of the Dynamo products, is that when there are ad campaigns running in your shows are being served to the listener off of the Dynamo hosting platform, which is basically the same platform as what Spreaker works on. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's a solid platform. It's got a solid CDN behind it to deliver your audio files reliably and effectively. So, and then we also will ping your primary host. So if you're hosting with an external provider, we're going to ping and let your hosting provider know that that file was requested through our servers. So you will get credit, and it will show up downloads and your plays on your platform stats program. So you'll be able to see all the numbers in one place, but you will also be able to see them in the Dynamo area as well. So you have it in both places, so you can track your revenue in the Dynamo area, but you can see our complete roll-up of all your downloads and plays in your own hosting platform's tools. So I think that's that's a recent thing that we've made a change to the platform, and I think it's really great for podcasters. And money earned will vary based on how many pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll spots that are set in each of your episodes, because it is an impression-based payout. So the number of campaigns that are enabled in your show, and as you filter down, I'm going to show you a list of kind of campaign genres of sorts, and as you block those, you will have the potential of not having as much revenue because you're going to be blocking the opportunity of campaigns. So just keep that in mind when you're blocking different categories of ad genres. You may be lowering the amount of ad campaigns that would be in your program, and that has a kind of a domino effect that I will talk about a little bit later as well. Ad buys are active, right? So you have ad buys that are active, and then once they're completed and they've delivered the amount of impressions that are purchased, then they will stop too. And then your revenue share will grow based on the speed of your audience growth and the number of spots that you have in your show as well. Payments are typically made between 45 and 60 days after campaigns are run. It depends a little bit on the advertiser's funding of that on their ends, because there's multiple parties involved in the payment structures of these campaigns. So just keep that in mind as well. I wanted to make sure everybody understands that that's a typical scenario in these type of ad buys. So let's talk about getting started. I think this is the meat and potatoes of it. Really, it's a matter of going to voxnest.com/dynamo and getting a free account. Each account is based on one show, so you can't have multiple shows in one Dynamo account. And really, all you have to do is cut and paste your current podcast RSS feed. I wouldn't necessarily do this unless you know that the platform that you're on supports the Dynamo products. So I'm going to run through that for you as well, like I've said prior. And you can go in and set your default pre and post roll ad insertion points. Those are automatic. There's no kind of custom configuration like you do have to do with the mid-roll areas. The Dynamo product has a ad insertion tool to help you locate specific locations in your timeline of your audio program to set the insertion marker points, and how many marker points that you want in there. I have some recommendations on that I'll cover in a follow-up slide here. And then you can also use the advertising category blocking tool that I had alluded to in a minute or so ago, to not allow certain ads from playing in your podcast. So if there's a genre of ads that you just don't want in your podcast because it conflicts with your topic or your sensitivity to your audience, this is an area you should probably look at and do a lot of thinking around. And then follow the directions to get your Dynamo prefix. And this is a very important part, and I'm going to be spending a fair amount of time talking about this. It's basically a redirect URL, and I'll show you what that looks like here coming up. And it basically is added to the media file links that are in your current RSS feed. So it's like an appending URL that sits in front of your main MP3 link, essentially, in your RSS feed. And I want to also mention the Dynamo help section is also available that will walk you through kind of these steps as well of working with different hosts and things like that. And that's at help.voxnest.com/Dynamo. And you'll see it on the screen here. I would definitely take a note of that. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's start walking our way through the kind of the visual of the Dynamo product, so you can kind of get a better idea of what the steps are that you need to go to. And if you've already gone through this process and you just then just kind of follow along with me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of these slides. It's just to kind of give you a visual, so when you go to the website, you aren't going to be surprised by what you see there. Okay, so the first screen, get registered, right? Get your RSS feed, cut and paste it in here, type in your email address, your name, basically set up a password, check the box just to make sure you're not a robot, and you should be good to go to the next step. Okay. The next step would be basically, let me jump ahead a little bit here. Okay. The next thing that you would actually see would be this is basically a prefix that would be generated. So if you look at the very top of the screenshot here, it says your prefix URL. You can click copy there, and that will copy that for you into your cut and paste tool, and then just paste that into like a Word doc or in some sort of a document that you can store that. That's the URL that you need to give to your host platform, like a Libsyn or a Buzzsprout or any of those type of hosting platforms, and that's what they will need to add to your media file links. And so let me go back here, and this is the landing screen that you'll see that will track, like I was saying earlier, your ad impressions, your last month's earnings, and revenue per 1,000 listens, right? So, and then also track where your listeners are coming from, your total audience, and it will keep track of what your earnings are. Keep in mind, this tool's a little bit, it can be a little delayed in the numbers that it shows. It's not as real time as I think everybody would like. That's how it works today. So also on this screen as well, you can see your feed URL, which is the podcast feed that you submitted into the tool, the name of the podcast, and you can check the boxes to enable pre and post roll ads there, and then you'll be all set. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And then you just click Save Changes. You jump ahead to the next one. Okay, I wanted to just show you really quick. Now you saw it in the prior slide, what an example prefix is. And this is basically a URL, just like a website URL, but this needs to sit in front of your media link in your RSS feed in what's called your enclosure tag, right? This is really this is the heart of podcasting right here. When enclosure tags were added to RSS feeds, this is what enabled podcasting to be the industry that it is today, right? But anyway, this prefix is added. See in the lower screen there where the red URL is, that's the same as what's above. And then what's to the right in the blue link there is your original link to your MP3 file. That's your show. That's what's typically in the RSS feed. So we've added a little link there that enables us to do a redirect on that traffic to our servers when there's a campaign. And then when there isn't a campaign, it goes back to pulling from the blue link. So I just wanted to share that so it was really clear on what we're doing with the prefix and what the prefix means. So let me jump ahead here. Okay, the platforms that are currently supporting the prefix are the ones on the screen that you're seeing: Libsyn, SoundCloud, PowerPress, WordPress, Squarespace, Podbean, Buzzsprout, and iVox, which is a podcast audio listening platform out of Spain. So these are the platforms that are currently supporting it. We are working on expanding this list. But as you can see, there's a help area for each of those platforms that are in the Voxnest Dynamo help area. So if you just go to help.voxnest.com/dynamo, it'll show up with a list of all of these platforms, just like what I've shown you here, and help on how to get that done, how to get that prefix into those platforms. And it's really key because this is what turns the key to start the engine, right, of you earning revenue, is this piece right here. It's so important to completing the loop of activating this product. So this issue right here is one of the key reasons why we're doing a webinar, is to help people understand how this works. So let's go ahead and jump ahead to the next slide here. I wanted to also share a little bit of detail about mid-rolls. Mid-rolls are where I believe the opportunity is going to be most, as far as you generating revenue and you keeping a strong and growing audience. So I wanted to just kind of break this down a little bit. It's mid-rolls are kind of a controversial topic in the medium right now. There's a variety of different ways that it can be done. Some of it comes out of radio. Some of it comes out of like public media, and some of it is kind of like pure play podcast principles around advertising in the middle of content, right? And that's what we're really talking about here, is how to best present ads, frankly, in the middle of podcast content. Podcasting is not radio. Podcasting doesn't have typically established breaks. Podcasts have a beginning and an end. There's typically not a lot of exits, intros, lead-ins, things like that typically happen in podcasts. So what you have to do is you have to think about this a little bit differently. I mean, there are a lot of shows out there that option for having a hard exit, voice breaks, kind of like radio, where you leave the program, you go to a commercial break, and then you reintroduce your topic and your guests coming back after the commercial break, which you can do with this product as well. This is all about thinking about your content and how you produce your content to enable the best presentation for your show to your audience, in conjunction with advertising. So, and then the other more common technique in the podcasting area is more of soft breaks, is what I call it, more of an NPR kind of lead in and exit, like a supported by kind of thing, and then it starts playing the actual spot itself, which you could use as a break. So when you set that insertion point in the DYNAMO tools to where you want that ad to go, and that replacement ad and that updated. And not every episode that's downloaded, keep this in mind too, not every episode that's downloaded through this product is going to have an ad in it. So that presents another level of challenge too. Do you want to have exits and intros without any spots in it? So, because it creates this kind of like this break in the content, but it's kind of like having two slices of bread with no peanut butter and jelly in it, right? Does that make sense to the audience? So one of the other ways that things are done in this area, since ads are not always in your episodes, and this is kind of what I recommend, is that there are no real hard voiced exits, right? You can mention that to encourage your audience to realize that this message is supporting you and supporting your ability to keep producing this content. I think that's probably an okay compromise here to create an exit like that, but typically a no voiced exit or a transition to a podcast ad that's really set in between topic or segment changes, right? So you could have like maybe like a music tone or something like that between segments of your podcast, and then have that insertion point be in that area there. And I think that's one way of doing it. And then another recommendation is place those insertion points rather early in your show, and maybe have them at only 10 to 15 minute segments in your show. So don't have a spot that's placed, or a mid-roll insertion point that's any earlier than after 10 minutes of content. So I would do it between 10 and 15 minutes. My recommended number of ad spots would be like one optional pre-roll, a mid-roll every 10 to 15 minutes of content. It could be 1 to 2 spots per break maximum, and an optional post-roll, which typically post-rolls don't get listened to much at all. So just realize, so that would be like, it depends on how long your show is. It could be 3 to 6 spots is typically the range that I see out there with this product. And then use that advertising category blocking tool to kind of manage that on your side. So I hope that's clear with everybody. And this webinar will be available for on-demand playback as well. So if all that didn't make clear sense to you, just go back and re-listen to this, and certainly ask questions. So let's go ahead and move on here. So this is what the screen looks like when you bring in all your episodes, right? So you can see all the episodes into the DYNAMO tool, and then it has like their length, the number of ads. So I click the pre-roll and post-roll spots, so you can see in the column that says ads there's 2 spots per episode right now that are established at the bookends, right, at the beginning and at the end. And then on the far right below the 14 total ads, it says don't forget to add your mid-rolls. So you click on the little plus, and it says add, and you move on to that screen, and what it will do is it'll load the audio waveform from that episode into the tool, and that's what you're seeing there is that process. And then it'll show up with your waveform in there, and this is your audio, this is your timeline, this is the waveform of your audio, right? So what you're going to do here is you're going to set those insertion points. So as you can see on the timeline in the small band below, there's basically two colors. There's a red at the far left and then a green. The red little marker there is basically setting the insertion point early in the program. So that would be your first mid-roll insertion, and that's actually two ad spots there because it's red. So you see down in the bottom right-hand side it says double ad. So you can add two mid-roll insertion ads, and that's within like the first probably the first minute and a half of the show is that red marker there. And then as you scroll over, that red box scrolls over, it basically then look up in the upper right hand corner is the other green marker, which is a single mid-roll ad. That's basically been set at the 18 and 46 second mark, or 18 minutes and 40 seconds. That's about every 15 or so minutes, right? Like I was talking about earlier. Setting those insertion, that's a single ad spot there. And then if you scroll to the next screen, go to the next screen, you can see the third insertion point we've set here. So you click the plus sign single ad green button down there, and that will give you a little tool that you can drag across the screen to establish your third insertion point in your timeline. And you're kind of at the 30-minute mark. So you're like every 15 minutes or so is what you're doing here. And you could do it through the whole program. It just depends on how long your program is, but also how many ads you want to have in there. Maybe you don't want to have ads for the last half of your show. Maybe you want to have all the ads towards the beginning of the show because that's where most of your audience is. So you're going to get more impressions probably in the first 80% of your show than you are all the way to the end. But you're typically going to lose probably 20% of your listener audience from about the last 20% of your show. But it's remarkable that how many people listen to full episodes of podcasts. I mean, it's a very high percentage. It's like 80%. So setting these insertion points in these locations can be pretty effective for the advertiser. It's not too disruptive to your listener because they're getting a good chunk of content in between each spot. And it's just a matter of just feeling this out. Get feedback from your audience, what they think of all this. Is it too many ads? Are the ads not what they expect from your show? It's something that you need to kind of feel your way through and adjust. So maybe two ad spots at the beginning of the show may be too much. Maybe you need to put two in a different location or something. You can tweak it. You can adjust this to make it work for you. And then just hit save down the bottom right hand corner. So once you've established this new insertion point, just hit save, and then that stores it to that episode. So you have to do this with each of your episodes. And that's why it's really good when you produce your show that you've established these established breaks that you can see in the waveform. You can go in very quickly, set those markers, and get it done quickly. So, and that's the power. So let's go ahead and jump ahead here. Here are the ad controls. So you have the ability to go in here and click on one of these categories, and there's a whole bunch of categories here. There's even more beyond what you see on the screen here. But you can see, these are advertiser categories, right? So advertisers that are come in are the want to advertise about careers or education or business or automotive. So like the auto zone is under automotive, or like home and garden would be like Home Depot, that kind of thing. So you can kind of focus it down if you want to, but just realize every time you click one of those off buttons, you're limiting the potential revenue or the campaigns that will be hitting your show. So let's go ahead and click to the next one. So when you've selected to turn off one of these content areas, so I selected the illegal content category, which is kind of an odd category, but I guess there is out there. So you can basically, there's subgenres that you can block at a more refined level as well. As you can see, copyright infringement, the illegal content, spyware, malware, those are advertisers, right, that are kind of in that area and that genre. You can turn those off if you want as well. So let's go ahead and skip to the next one. Now on the monetization side, what you first need to do is to sign up for revenue. So you have to sign up, get your bank account information in there, and really kind of get that all filled out. So when you do generate revenue, we as a company, DYNAMO, knows where to pay you. So this is an important step in the process. So just put in your email address to get started with for your PayPal account. So you're going to need to get a PayPal account in order for us to pay you. So we may have other ways of paying you in the future, but this is currently how we're set up to do it today. So, and then this is the first screen that comes up. You'll notice at the very top it says, please note that you will receive each payment within 50 days after the end of each calendar month. So like I was talking about earlier in the presentation, there is some delay that happens in the payments through these processes because of the layers of, there's the agencies that pay the ad buying platforms, and then the ad buying platforms have to pay us, and then we need to get payment out to you. So there's steps in this process, but the big thing is you need to fill out your W-9, which is basically a tax identification number as a sole proprietor or corporation, partnership, limited liability company, whatever you have set up here, as far as your own personal organization around taxes, just needs to be filled out. So that's what this is all about. And then your taxpayer identification number, if you have one, your social security number, if you have a company behind you, and then just check the boxes and sign this and submit it, and that completes your enrollment into getting paid. Once that's done, guess what? You get to have fun creating content and doing that as what you love to do, and you'll earn some revenue from it more on an automatic basis. So that's basically the whole webinar. Let's get to your